thank you all for that award. It's unbelievable. Bruce asked me to talk about our journey. My late husband George's and my journey into philanthropy, and I'd be glad to do that. All of us in this room are born with journeys in our future. Our lives start and end in a journey from being an embryo for 9 months in the womb through our educational years, our careers, marriage, child rearing for some, and for others it might be to just find their niche in the world, to our final journey through old age, sickness, and finally death. In my second journey, I met my husband, my soulmate, George Goldman. We reared 4 incredible offspring in our third journey, who gave us much pleasure with their combined 11 children. Yes, life has its ups and downs, but we weathered them all as learning journeys until a few months after we moved to Lake Forest in 1990, when I was handed a death sentence. I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, MM, from which very few people at that time lived longer than 5 years. We were lucky we did. George and I set out on a different type of journey to quickly learn as much as possible about multiple myeloma and how to survive this terrible disease. I opted to take part in a clinical trial that was headed by doctors at Mayo Clinic, whom we personally met several years later, and to this day retain a friendship with Doctors Robert Kyle and Philip Wright. Most patients are just a number to the head researchers in a clinical trial, but I became the first patient that they had ever met in person and could now refer to by a name. After 2 years in chemotherapy, I was in remission, and we can now plan the rest of our lives. In the months following my diagnosis, we discovered that adequate research was not being done on this known disease, which kills about 11,000 people a year. We wanted to change the way research was done. We didn't want our money to go towards salaries and building upkeep, so we formed our first charity with a very long name, the Judith and George Goldman Foundation for Fighting Catastrophic Diseases. That was a mouthful. Then we had to find someone to run it, because neither of us had the time or expertise to commit to it. I wanted to hire someone with experience in running a foundation and in fundraising. George wanted someone who could take our vision, which was definitely out of the box, and run with it. He won, as usual. Forgive me for bouncing this, but I am so short. I'm trying to stand up tall, not hear this. We also had other differences. I wanted to concentrate on childhood diseases because children should have the opportunity to experience life. And my husband was more concerned with my cancer and later on his diagnosis of myelodysplastic syndrome, MDS, in 1999. We took an advisor with us from the University of Indiana when we went up to Mayo Clinic to review their multiple myeloma research. That research, our first grant went to Dr. Vincent Raj-Kumar at the Mayo Clinic and started his career. That research inadvertently led us in the direction of repurposing FDA-approved drugs for other purposes, which Cures Within Reach now does full-time. Dr. Raj-Kumar's research led to thalidomide, and I'm sure you all remember that drug. But they used that to treat myeloma patients, a drug that I was given when I came out of remission. As an aside, which I think you'll get a kick out of, a gentleman named Jim Holden called us to see if we could find a cure for his cat, Azusa, who had myeloma. No cat had ever survived for long. I donated my leftover thalidomide pills, and Bruce worked his magic finding a pharmacologist and working with an oncologist, and Sousa lived for 3 years. Medical good. We also allowed Dr. Gregg to fulfill his dream about getting the multiple myeloma research doctors from around the world together at a symposium where they could share their expertise on how to treat MM. This was done on Amelia Island in January 2001. We had invited Dr. Henry Heimlich and his wife Jane to attend as our guests. Dr. Heimlich was a hit with most of the doctors in the audience in attendance, and they talked to him at length over lunch. The symposium was a huge success. After that, we started hiring staff, and mid-2001 changed our name to Goldman Philanthropic Partnerships. One of the ways that our foundation was different from others was because we formed a partnership with the researcher we wanted to fund and the institution he worked in. All our money had to go to the research being done, not to the institution. We also had the researcher sign an agreement spelling out what they were going to accomplish. Thereafter, our researcher had to provide quarterly submissions to us so that we would know the progress being made. If the researcher could not justify in their quarterly reports why he or she wasn't making progress, we could stop the funding. No sense throwing good money into something that was going nowhere. In 2004, we took over administration of 2 medical research programs from the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, who required that we become a public charity, which we did by starting Partnership for Cures, which is now Cures for Reach, within reach. George and I kept GPP as a family foundation, and we turned over the public charity for Bruce to run. I am especially proud of the work we have done through Goldman Philanthropic Partnerships and Cures Within Reach in saving the lives of children. The projects that Dr. David Tichy did at CHOP on the children's blood disease ALPS, and that Dr. Barish Rubin did for him on the children's genetic nervous disorder, FD, have saved thousands of children's lives. And those successes have led the way for us to do more clinical research in pediatric brain cancer, autism, adolescent diabetes, Batten disease, and many more. I am grateful to receive this Philanthropy Patient Impact Award, and I hope all of you will carry on the legacy that George and I and many others have created. Thank you very much.